Hi, I'm Phil Brock. This is Brock and Your Block, except we're not on the block today. We're actually in the studio because I'm going to interview Armen Melkonians, who is the creator of Residocracy. Hi, Armen.
Hi,
Good to
Phil.
see you, buddy.
Pleasure to...
So, Armen, you formed Residocracy and fought the Heinz development, the Heinz company development, on the side of the old Papermate pen factory. Why, and what was the result? Where are we 2 years later, and are we better off than we were then, to coin an old President Reagan adage?
Absolutely, Phil. Yes, the Heinz project was approved by our city council that's very pro-development. It had little input from residents, and the input that it had from residents was rejected by our city council. So we used the tool of direct democracy to file a referendum and to get signatures from residents to veto our city council. And the residents overwhelmingly approved this referendum and rejected the council's decision. Are we better off? Of course we're better off. Instead of having a massive project that would have been the same size as the Santa Monica Place Mall, we are doing an adaptive reuse project at that site. It's much less traffic. Instead of 7,000 cars daily that would have been added to Santa Monica, there may be an additional 1,800 or so. So we're much better off, absolutely.
So by metric measures, we're better off. Did we stifle development? Did we kill the economy of our city?
Absolutely not, Phil. Absolutely not. We see that. Immediately there was someone willing to take that project and come in. Immediately.
So, pretend you're Dr. Phil for a minute.
Yes.
And explain LUVE to me, your Land Use Voter Empowerment Initiative. Explain it in simple terms. Why should I support it? How many signatures do you need, and what's the deadline? And where do we go from here, and why are you stirring up trouble again?
We're not stirring up trouble, Phil. That's number one. What we're doing is we're trying to give residents a voice in development decisions in Santa Monica. Too often our elected officials campaign to stop development, to represent residents, but yet when they're on the dais, they continuously vote for development projects. We haven't seen one development project that's been rejected by our city council. LUVE will give residents that opportunity to voice their opinion at the ballot box. This is what we need now. We need the residents to have the voice. We've been ignored for too long.
The height limit seems draconian. What is the height limit for this measure, and will it stifle our city's economy?
Well, the height limit, I've heard from city council members who are pro-development that it's draconian. But from residents, we set the height limit at what they call Tier 1. It's a 32-foot height limit. And why did we select 32 feet?
How many stories is 32 feet?
32 feet, according to the LUVE, is 2 stories.
So anything over 2 stories has to go to the voters?
Anything over 2 stories, with exceptions provided for housing, for low-income housing. However, the reason why we selected that tier level is because the entire LUVE, the zoning documents that were provided to us, were told by our council members that they would protect us as residents. And that was the limit that they set in the LUVE that would protect us. Everything above that was to provide community benefits. Then we saw that the council removed those protections in the zoning ordinance from Tier 2 all along the city. And now in the downtown community plan, they're trying to remove them from Tier 3. And so therefore, we looked at the documents that were approved by our council, that were sold to the residents as protecting our city, and that was at Tier 1. So what we're saying is anything above Tier 1 that has community benefits, those community benefits should be on a ballot, and they should be approved by residents.
So you're saying add transparency to the process and eliminate backroom deals?
I think that's what we're saying. You know, there's a lack of trust in our council members currently, and for the last 5 years it's been building up. There's a lack of trust in our city staff, and it's been building up. And it's time residents take control, and it's time residents have the power of the vote.
Now, I was out yesterday talking to some residents. They said, well, just elect different city council members. Why would you send everything to the ballot box?
So what happens is that in our democracy, we have checks and balances. And the initiative is the ultimate checks and balances in our system of democracy. So we have council members who campaign and promise to give us protections. They promise not to approve these buildings. But yet, when it comes down to the vote, they vote for it. And every 4 years is when residents pay attention. But the initiative process gives residents that power to create law that council members cannot touch. If a law is created through the initiative, it remains in force. Council members cannot change that law. So it's time that we take our constitutional rights, and it's time that we adopt them to our zoning ordinances.
So what becomes of our city of Santa Monica if LUVE passes? Do we end up with doom and stagnation, which is what a lot of people will say in the city? Or do we end up with more vibrancy and livability? Or are we somewhere in between?
Well, the people who would say that we're getting doom and stagnation are not the residents. They're going to be the council members who oppose this measure because they want development. They want the greed of all the extra money that comes in. And Santa Monica is one of the richest cities across the world. We have enough money from our tourism, we have enough money from our existing businesses in order to survive. It's time to put that money to use for our existing residents and not put that money to use for developers that are coming from outside of the city, that are taking advantage of our political system that's created and getting their approvals. It's time that the residents get the benefit of the money that we're getting in Santa Monica as one of the richest cities in the world.
City Council is already about to propose a sales tax increase in our city. They're looking at a property transfer tax increase, trying to do that again on the ballot. Are they not going to say that if you instill this LUVE initiative, that schools will fail, businesses will fail, potholes will be created, police will have to be fired?
Absolutely, they're going to say that. And it's all not true. It's all not true. Again, we live in one of the richest cities in the world. If we can't fix potholes without building more buildings, then we have huge problems across the world. But we don't have those problems.
Are those large buildings causing us to have more problems? Does one follow the other? You know, the old tail wagging the dog. The more buildings we build, the more taxes we need because the more services we have to create and the more density and the more traffic we have.
Absolutely. We can't build our way into a solution. What we need to do is we need to stop. LUVE is a stopgap measure. It will be effective for 20 years, and it will cap development for 20 years. We'll get the better projects that come through, and let's deal with the problems that we have. We have enough money to solve our pothole problems. We have enough money for our schools. Again, we're one of the richest cities, so I just don't buy this criticism.
So $565 million a year in our city budget should be enough, you're saying, to run our city without having to add more massive development.
Absolutely. And the reality is that these new developments don't even add that much additional revenue by themselves to our city budgets. If we look at the analysis that was done, for example, for the Village Trailer Park, with almost 400, 500 apartment units or whatnot that it was, the massive project that it was, their own analysis showed that it would add only $4,000 a year to our general fund. And so I would beg to differ that the margin of error there in terms of what it's impacting our infrastructure is going to be much more than that.
You know, the Village Trailer Park is a great example of expelling our residents, because those people who lived at the Village Trailer Park, look, it was a trailer park. I wasn't thrilled about having a trailer park, but then you start talking about people's lives. And when you start talking about people's lives, over 100 people who lived in the city got displaced. Yes, we'll get new people. But what about those people who invested their time, their energy, their muscle into helping build Santa Monica? They're now gone.
Well, I think that the issue of the trailer park is a lot more significant, because the city has a policy to help in housing. It has a policy to provide housing at all levels of income. And the Village Trailer Park was an exact example of the lowest income levels in our city. And yet the city used the Village Trailer Park to somehow say that it was to create more housing, more affordable housing. They actually destroyed the most affordable housing in our city.
Yeah.
And they provided less affordable housing. In a city where its policies are supposed to be given to us by our policymakers that they are for affordable housing, to me it's quite obvious that they're actually for development and not affordable housing.
Are you going to contribute to the housing crisis, the supposed housing crisis in Santa Monica if LUVE passes?
Absolutely not, actually. LUVE will be beneficial for our housing crisis. It will help the housing crisis. We have exemptions for 100% affordable housing. We have exemptions for moderate income housing. And it's going to stop the commercial developments. It's going to allow those developments that are truly affordable to get passed without voter approval. But yet it's going to put the scrutiny on the projects, such as the Frank Gehry Hotel project on Ocean and Santa Monica, where the community benefit that they're offering to go 220 feet high on a lot that's zoned for 50 feet high, they are going to add 5 additional affordable housing units. And to me, that's not a community benefit.
So I have a question. Tell me about the Plaza in Santa Monica. My feeling, my intuition says that's the flashpoint this year.
Well, the
Really
Plaza,
briefly, give me an idea of what is the Plaza of Santa Monica, where is it going, and why is our city willing to violate our height limit?
well, the Plaza at Santa Monica is a very special project because it's owned by the city. And when we say owned by the city,
So it's owned by us.
absolutely, Residocracy and the residents of Santa Monica consider that as being resident-owned, not city-owned. So it's a flashpoint because all of the special interests have aligned themselves at that project on a city-owned property, and they're proposing a 12-story hotel complex.
I understand they've dropped it to 10.
Well,
to be fair, they're halfway to our city, to the height limit downtown.
they haven't voted on it, and we've seen this quite many times, which is also the trust issue. So they tell us they're going to do this, they tell us they're going to do that, but even at 10 stories, even assuming that they will stick to 10 stories, and they haven't actually dropped it yet officially, it's going to be massive. It's a parcel of land where residents have called for a park in the center of our downtown, and the city is wanting and pushing and calling for a 12-story hotel
And you know,
development.
I'm the chair of the Recreation and Parks Commission, so anywhere we can add green space in this increasingly densely populated, congested city, I'm for it. There was a phone poll last night asking residents about the effect of love and whether we trust our city council. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that the reason that the LUVE initiative is here is because residents don't trust our city council. The initiative process, again, is that checks and balances. And what LUVE is doing is it's adding an extra level of approvals. It's after the city council approves a project, we're asking the residents to approve it as well. And that comes from the trust issue.
Are we carrying representative democracy too far? And is it too late for our city manager, Rick Cole, to be able to adjust our council's policies to match our residents' desires?
Well, Phil, this is an interesting question because the reality is this is what we hear from the city, or from residents, or from businesses, that the city manager is working for us to adjust policy. The reality is that the council sets the policy. The city manager is hired by the city council. And he does the job, he or she will do the job that he is being told to do. So to me, it's quite clear that when the council is pro-development, the city manager is pro-development. If the city manager was slow growth and the council was pro-growth, the city manager would get fired. And so the city manager is actually pushing the policies of the city council, not pushing policies towards the city council. So Rick Cole's job is to kind of smooth things out with the residents right now. We just adopted the zoning ordinance. We're not going to adopt a new one, and that's why LUVE is here. So I believe it is time for residents to take control. Direct democracy is for these instances where our city council ignores resident input for years and years and years. Thousands of residents have chimed in, and we've been told no. And that's what direct democracy is for.
What do you love about Santa Monica? And a final word, what will LUVE do for Santa Monica?
Well, Phil, Santa Monica, I love Santa Monica in its existing state. You know, we have mostly two-story buildings. We have a wonderful atmosphere. We have wonderful environment. We have blue skies. We have ocean breezes. And all of this new development is going to transform Santa Monica into a different kind of city, into every town USA. We're going to lose our charm. We're going to lose the charm we hold across the world as being Santa Monica. You know, when people think of Santa Monica, they don't think of big buildings. They don't think of Miami. They think of the pier. They think of the palm trees, the blue skies. And the smaller nature of a beach city. And we're transforming that. We're going to lose it.
So authenticity and uniqueness, those should be key words when we're talking about Santa Monica. Thank you for being here, Armen. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Phil.
I'm Phil Brock. This has been another edition of Brock on Your Block.